Right. Welcome to another episode of the Zero10 Podcast. We're really excited to have Miss Nancy talking to us today. Nancy is a connector and a bold voice for women ready to rise. She's rooted in courage, determination, and joy, and she found women, worth, and wellness to expand the conversation around health and wealth, net worth, self-worth, philanthropy, legacy. She inspires women to feel fabulous, generous, confident, and fully on top of their game, building lives that are rich from the inside out. And that's just through looking through through all the content that you sent to us. And so I'm so excited for you to just share pieces of that as we walk through this interview today.
Perfect. Thanks, Josie and Andi. Delighted to be here.
Yes.
We're happy to have you.
Okay, so Nancy, tell us first off, where are you at? Where are you at in the world?
Okay. I'm in Ontario, Canada, and I live between Toronto and Montreal on Lake Ontario in a community called Prince Edward County, and familiarly called the county, if you're from the county. And it's just a terrific community. And because we're sort of 2.5, 3 hours from Toronto, and same thing from Montreal, there are a lot of people who have properties here, professionals. So it's a beautiful, beautiful area geographically, really stunning. But because it is so close to those major centers, we have a lot of really fabulous people who have either got a second property here or have eventually chosen to live here full time. So lots of vibrance in many different ways, which is delightful.
I love that because I think, who we surround ourselves with
Right.
really makes a difference on where, how we start thinking about ourselves, thinking about the communities and the world, really, just some open-mindedness.
Correct.
Yeah. So when did you start your Women Worth and Wellness? I'm gonna say brand because or movement even. Like it sounds like it's been here a while. So
No,
what
it is a
sparked
brand.
that? And
It is a brand. My first career was at Procter and Gamble, and I left after 18 years and ran politically, and then was basically the, president of everything going in the community. And after 3 or 4 years, I thought, oh my goodness, I've got to get a job out of this community because they knew where I lived and they'd come knocking on my door and say, okay, Nancy, can you help us with whatever? So through that process, I met this lady, and this is one of my key learnings. Just met her casually at a business event. She had been outplaced as a VP at a very large company. I guess the boss didn't like her or whatever, and was given a bagload of money. So, and this is 1992. So
okay.
she went looking for somebody to help her invest all of this money and was very disappointed. So she decided to get into the wealth management business herself. And she was the one that recruited me into the wealth management business. I was heading towards a contract with a consulting firm. And she said, no, don't do that. That's not something you want to do for the next 30 years of your life. And so, okay, in we go to wealth management. And of course, met her boss. And he said, well, you've got to have credentials. You've got to have licenses. So go get your licenses and then come back. And away we go. So it was a great company. Now I'm all licensed up, ready to go. And he said, well, there's only one small problem, and that is you don't have any clients. You've got to go find your own clients. Because in the wealth management business, you really want to work with people who you care about the most, because your role is to add a lot of value to their lives, not just today, but going forward into the future. So their advice was, you want to prospect people whom you can add value to over a lifetime. And so I had just left Procter and Gamble, had done some things in the community, and the common factor that kept popping up was women, because women were just in the process of starting to earn much more money that they were really keen to pay attention to and invest for their future. So I decided I would focus on women, not exclusively, but primarily. And as luck had it, one of the investment groups that I worked with, they too had come up with a whole opportunity with working with women. And they had this whole marketing program called Investing in Yourself. So all I had to do was pick a location, do some marketing and invitations to invite these women to come. And basically, I'm ready to go. It was seminar in a box almost. Anyway, I had over 150 women who came. So it's like, oh my goodness, I've hit I've hit gold, a pocket of gold. So now what you do is you need to meet with these women one at a time. And as I started to meet with them and understand their situations, we didn't get to the wealth plan because they're still focused on their family's health plan. It was like they're the on-site nurse practitioner. And I thought, well, I know something about health, but I'm certainly not an expert. So that's when I started to partner with not-for-profit health-related organizations focusing on women's health and wellness. In Toronto, we have this hospital, Women's College Hospital, which is over 100 years old. And that's all they focus on with their research and their events and their seminars. So I started to invite my clients and their friends to these seminars. I would charge a nominal amount, like $25 or $50. And that starts to introduce how charitable giving enhances your net worth, because any donation that you make can be deducted from your tax return. But we also know when you're in a situation of giving or sharing, more often than not, the person who gains the most is the person who's giving. So that's the self-worth component. So really, that's how it all began. And then I just kept on working with lots of other different organizations focusing on women's health and wellness. For example, the Heart and Stroke Foundation. Heart disease is the leading cause of death for women. And so helping women understand that symptoms of heart disease for women are quite different than they are for men. The other aspect to all of this is if you have questions about health and you want to get an answer, I mean, you can Google it and that will be something, but good luck phoning your doctor to get a quick response. No. So now these women will have contacts at this hospital, Heart and Stroke. Princess Margaret is a cancer facility. So now they've got go-to contacts if they have questions, and those contacts will gladly help them understand, answers to their queries.
Well, that's pretty amazing. That sounds wonderful. I'm curious, like when it came down to collaborating with other places, like I feel like they have to really connect with your core values too, and really mirror, what you're saying and what they're saying. Did you find it that was pretty simple or easy, or did you have to dig a little bit to find your right
No, it
people?
was pretty simple because these think of Heart and Stroke. Like if they're pushing out information into the public, how many people are picking up on it? So
Yeah.
here I am with this entourage behind me who I want to learn more about heart and stroke. So I would go to them and say, I'm a wealth advisor. I have clients and their friends, and I want them to know more about heart and stroke. And is this an event that we can organize, or can I invite some of my contacts to attend one? Well, they're delighted. They're
Oh yeah.
delighted because they really want to get their message out. So here I am coming right to them. So I partnered with many organizations, and it was just a pleasure. It really was.
That's
Did
awesome.
you do you find that I'm curious about the initial, you said initially your first event, you had 150 women show up. Were these primarily business women, like women in the business world, or was it women stay at home? I mean, was there a mixture of women or was it primarily women that were in the business world?
I think it was primarily business women, but certainly women who have families. I
Okay.
think well, there would have been some that perhaps were single, but basically they were professional women one way or another. Some may be on leave, on a maternity leave, but still primarily business women. And primarily, I would think the ages at that point would be 30 to 60.
And when you met with these women, I'm curious also, You said you found that their goals a lot, that really it came down to health more so than wealth, maybe. Um, was charitable giving a piece of that? Like, was there a lot of people that were interested in that piece of things too? And is that something that you coach people with?
I did coach, and that wasn't the number one priority. So we would meet, and this is what I tell women is to, if you're working with a wealth advisor and that you're not 100% satisfied and you want to get a second opinion from someone else, you're looking to find out who that person is and what they offer. And it doesn't work that way. Because when you go to a new wealth advisor for a second opinion, if that wealth advisor is a good one, they will ask you a million questions. And your
Right.
attitude really is, stop asking me questions because I want to ask you questions. But it's like going to a new health practitioner. In order for them to serve you well, they too have to ask a lot of questions. And invariably, how they validate what you're saying and what you're working towards and how they can help you well is they recommend that you go and get a blood sample done. So when those results come back, now they can validate that what you've told them is reality with this blood sample, or maybe there's something there that you didn't know that now this professional needs to help you with. Same thing with the wealth advisor. They will ask you all sorts of questions because in order for that person to um, address their fiduciary responsibility, they have to make sure they know who you are. Because if they recommend things that are not right for you, then they are at risk of losing their credentials and their licensing. So, but once they ask a whole pile of questions, then they've got an idea of who you are and how they can best help you. And the other thing that I recommend is if you're working with a wealth advisor who has prepared a wealth plan for you, and they haven't anticipated health related challenges in that wealth plan, you're working with the wrong person. If you're diagnosed with breast cancer, what coverage do you have? Do you have benefits at your employment? Do you have personal coverage? Or have you not even thought about any coverage and thought if something happens, then you'll just draw down from your 401k or whatever? So understanding all those aspects and intricacies of a proper wealth plan is crucial.
Wealth is way beyond finances, isn't it?
Exactly. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And Andy, going back to your point about charitable giving, no, that wasn't necessarily something that was a AAA priority at all. People didn't come to me saying, tell me more about charitable giving. It was something that I introduced because the value that I'm bringing to the Heart and Stroke Foundation is a group of people who will make a charitable donation. So in effect, we're supporting your organization because we're learning. But then the benefit back to my clients is as a result of that $50 donation, you're going to be paying fewer taxes because it is a deduction. Now, fast forward 30 plus years later, and that's when we're really focused on philanthropy and legacy planning because women now are earning a way more than they were 30 years ago. But equally important, or perhaps even more important, they're starting to inherit from their parents with probably a whole lot more inheritance dollars coming their way. So all of a sudden, women have incredible power through the wealth that they're stewarding. That's why it's so important that they understand how it all comes together and should be maximizing all the opportunities that exist right now for today, but also going into the future.
Mhm. Right.
Very, very awesome. I'm curious. I'm going to go backwards a little bit in this
Yep.
in this, but I want to know what little Nancy wanted when she was younger. Like, what was something that young Nancy was interested in? Because it sounds like this was maybe later on, after school, after
What did I
or
want?
after licensing. I mean, you got the licenses and were able to go do your thing. But what
Exactly.
happened before that?
Well, quite frankly, when I landed into that situation, the learning was pay attention to what other people think you should be doing. I would never have been into that whole scenario if it had not been for this woman who took my head 180 degrees. just 180 degrees, and all of a sudden I'm doing this. When I got there, I was sorry I hadn't been there 20 years earlier because I was the youngest of four, or I am the youngest of four, and my parents always were investors. I grew up on a farm, and so if I missed the bus, my dad would have to drive me to high school, which is like 15 miles away. But while we're traveling along, he would have a newspaper and he'd call out his holdings and I would tell him what it closed at the day before. So I had always been surrounded by this. Math was easy for me. Then my mother became an investor. And if you read the website and all those sorts of things, was a terrific inspiration because she always felt that women should have their own money. That was a big deal to her, that women need to have their own bank account and their own power with their own wealth. And in her day, definitely that was not common. It was Mr. who had all the money and had control of all of the money, and you just lived your life that way. So I think probably younger, as I was emerging, I wanted to be a sociologist. And it's interesting because this is exactly what this is all about.
Mhm.
Amazing. In
Yeah.
high school, people would say, well, what's a sociologist? And I said, well, that's a good question. I had a good idea of what it was, but I didn't want to be a psychologist. I wanted to be a sociologist. So you're looking at, all those trends and realities with demographics, etc., with groups of people.
Right. It's super interesting. I had a minor in psych and in human biology, and I think I get asked all the, like, did that help you at all? And I'm like, yeah, it did. I mean, I'm not doing all of that, but I understand the foundation of why things are the way, or why people think the way they do, and also how the body functions on a cellular level, right? I'm a
Yes,
chiropractor by trade, and then it's just kind of developed into more of a movement now. But it's interesting how much that foundational piece really pushes the ball forward, in everything
right,
else that you do.
right.
Yeah. So knowing what you're wanting to do as a young kid, I mean, just keep exploring, right? Just keep asking the
Exactly,
questions and see where the good Lord takes us.
exactly. And my upbringing was, I was happy. It wasn't as though I mean, when I look back, I don't remember being sad. When you grow up in a farm, they always refer to you as a farmer, which means you're a less than a city person or a town person. They always, and that was kind of, but that it wasn't a showstopper by any means. It was kind of, well, that's the reality. At one point, I wanted my dad to buy a house so that we could live in town. And he looked at me like, well, why would we do that? But sort of the in crowd lived in town, but I was never excluded. And I still see a lot of those girls that I was in school with, in public school and in high school. Interesting.
Yeah.
What did you do at Procter and Gamble?
I was one of the first female managers in Canada, and I started in the finance area. So I did credit and collections for 5 years, I guess. And then I was recruited into the HR department, and that was fabulous. That was really, really good. That's when you learn all kinds of things because P&G recruits only into entry level positions. And so at one point, I did a lot of management training, and that was terrific. I mean, I was learning as much as I was teaching, and compensation, performance reviews, all that sort of thing. One of the things with performance reviews that we focused on is when you work with people or design systems for managers to work with their employees on, more often than not, it's like, okay, well, these are all the things that you're doing well, and these are the things that we need to focus on to help you improve. But really, what we ended up doing, and this is part of what I share now, is these are your strengths. How can we strengthen your strengths? How can we make what you're doing that much better? And forget about all these negatives, because if the energy goes over here, this will be minimized. If they're that severe, they're going to be corrected pretty quickly. But we can always focus on things that could be better. Forget it. Focus on what's working well and how can you enhance it. And what I've been sharing on a lot of these podcasts is that you live your life like a split screen. And so when the negatives pop up, and they always pop up first, deal with them and fade them to black, like over here. and then focus on the positives and how can you make those positives even better. And once you start training your mind that way, it's amazing. It's amazing the abundance that is generated.
100%.
I love
Strength
that.
finder.
I've
Yes.
never thought of it that way. I've done a lot of performance reviews in my roles over the years too, and you do focus on the things that they
Right.
need to, right?
Yep.
I never thought of the fact that you should really be focusing on the strengths. Not that they weren't focused on, but yeah, I that's a great way of looking at it.
Well, we always want all those negatives to be positives, and we spend a lot of time. But if that isn't the person's strength, then
Right.
okay, how can we just minimize this? This is another thing that I love, the 80% approach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
And again, don't wait for things to be perfect, especially when you're working with a group of people, because you'll wait forever and then people get bored along the way. So get on with it. Like if you've got the majority of it working and you encourage other people to have the majority of what they're on about to be working, then you could advance that much faster.
Love
Great.
it. Love it. Love it. I was, I'm trying to remember what the words you used, but when you first started, it was like credit, like
Credit and
collections.
collections.
Yeah. Okay. That you learn a lot from, first
Yes, you
off,
do.
like crucial conversations, like hearing the word no or being ghosted and all the things like that plays a huge role in your being able to, have a business and be a founder of a business for sure.
Right. And step up to people and track after them and, do it in a very professional way. We had this one incident. We had this really, really famous guy. He was a lawyer, but he was also a famous hockey player. And at one point, this really small account did not pay. So, of course, what the penultimate is you end up going to court. So I was supposed to go to court with this lawyer to get this guy to pay. Well, the stupid account paid. We got a check that morning. Oh no. Anyway, didn't have my moment of fame with that person.
Oh, funny. Well, good.
How do you keep yourself like, you're talking about all kinds of different ways you keep yourself healthy, financially and all of the things. Okay, so how do you what do you do in your personal life to keep your body healthy and maybe your spirit healthy, your soul healthy, those types of things?
Exactly that. When the negatives pop up, default to the positive. And it's very, very simply, what in the world is going on? And the fact that you're still alive is a big, big plus. Okay, so now that you're alive and some other people aren't, how can you enhance others' lives? And, I was just at an event on Friday, women's event, as a guest, and come and bring a friend. And who was there was about 4 people I've really helped significantly. So my attitude is very simply to give more than you take. And if you start focusing on others and forget about yourself, it's amazing. This young woman that I mentored who's doing exceptionally well, I was introducing her to a wealth advisor, and I said, she is with a not-for-profit, which might be a great event for you to have with your clients. So basically introduce them to one another and then let them have a conversation. And I just excused myself and went elsewhere. So that's the kind of thing that I love to do, is to be the catalyst, like be the catalyst and give more than you take. And again, once you have that mindset, you see opportunities. You don't you don't go shopping around. Okay, well, it happens. It happens. But if you've got that mindset, you're able to do that more easily and make that difference.
So where do you think people get in trouble? Because burnout happens for a lot of women. I mean, we host retreats to help with this, to keep people moving forward. Because I think women have a tendency to give more than they receive in a way. Not
Right.
saying that that's right. How do you communicate that? Because it sounds like, I mean, you're getting energy from somewhere, and obviously the
Right.
transaction, I don't want to say the transaction, the catalyst,
Yes.
but it is a transaction.
Right.
So you're getting that. So if somebody's approaching a feeling of that burnout in a way, and then they're told to give more, like what would you say to them?
Well, in that incident, who they need to give to first is to themselves,
Yeah.
because they're allowing a lot to happen that shouldn't happen. Women are often their own worst enemies because we really pride ourselves in being able to do everything all at once. And don't do it. Don't do it. And often women don't feel worthy. They don't feel that they've got the right to make themselves the priority. And we all know that the worst thing you can say about a woman is that she is very selfish. Like all she ever thinks about is herself. That would never no woman would ever want anybody to say that about them. But at the same time, you are worthy of making yourself the number one priority. And if you don't, you're making a huge mistake. And once you start to make yourself a priority and realize that your life is your greatest asset and your greatest treasure, then you start to think differently. You start to think about, why am I doing all these things? And one of the best things you can do, just like me matching those two up, is to think about how you can delegate to somebody else. And of course, often women say, oh, I couldn't possibly do that. They have no clue how to do what I do. Well, guess what? You're a smart person. You're a very smart person. Think about how you can pass that over to somebody else, and you can train them on what's important, but then let them do it their own way, which won't be your way, but you'll be very, very proud of yourself when you see them now owning it.
Mhm.
You're not responsible for that anymore. And all you need to do is say, congratulations, you're doing a super job. That's wonderful. Not, I'm delighted I gave this to you. Don't do that. Just congratulate them on being responsible and having ownership for something that you've passed to them. So that happens in a work environment. It also happens in a family environment with kids, with partners. Don't do it all. Be selfish. You don't have to walk around saying I'm being selfish, but talk to yourself, 5 minutes every morning. What can I do today to make myself stronger? Because the stronger you become, the more able you are to help other people.
Yeah. I think it's definitely taking note of what is actually going on in your life, right?
Right,
Like instead of being the busy bee per se, and then you go to bed and you're like, whew, that day like kicked my butt, but
right, right.
I'm so proud of myself, right? Like we can do that, and then pretty soon we're burnt out in a way. I think the strength finders thing that you talked about, like doing what you're good at and being proud of those things of yourself, I think foundationally that will just end in a result that you still have energy moving through you, right? Like
Correct.
it's just inevitable, but we have to take stock on what's actually happening between the ears in your body, like listening. Yeah.
For anyone who is listening who has their own business, the one thing that I encourage is that they be part of a peer-to-peer advisory group, because that helps you understand what your unique ability is and how you can bring that forward and make it prominent in your life.
Mhm.
And peer-to-peer helps you enhance all of that. You're giving feedback to others to help them, but they're giving feedback to you to help you be the best that you can be so that you can do your best.
Very good advice. Very good. Have you had any like mentors throughout the years? I know you talked about one lady that turned your head 180 degrees. But who do you seek out for peer to peer at this point in your life?
Well, it's amazing how things come your way when you are just doing what you do. And this one woman, actually, I met her. She was on the board of the Women's College Hospital Foundation board. She moved to Miami. We'd connected a little bit. We weren't best friends, but we each appreciated one another. She moved to Miami, and probably about a year ago now, or maybe a little bit less than that, she's the one who said, Nancy. She reached out to me and said, Nancy, you've got to get involved with this whole podcasting scene. She said, I've just started up, and this is the group that I'm working with. So meet them. And all she did was throw it. There's the contact. So I picked it up, and away we go. It's a whole new world, a whole new world, because she knew me enough to connect me with who she knew that she thought would be an enhancement to what I was doing. And sure enough, I mean, it was truly, truly, truly amazing. Truly amazing. I think you have to be with like-minded people. And again, what she did is what I love to do. She went out of her way to think of me and to send something my way that was a real enhancement to what I was doing. Incredible.
Looking at your, is it, sorry, Pearl? No, it has the horse on it.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't,
this year is the year of the horse.
yes.
And if
Yes.
you haven't lowered the microscope on that, it is unbelievably fabulous. It's the whole aspect of what women have what women have always wanted. It's all about positivity and action and momentum and courage and in other words, step it up, girls.
Let's
This
do
is
it.
your opportunity. And it only comes every 60 plus years or something. So it's like there it is. It's lobbed right down. Don't waste a minute. Like, figure out who you are. What do you want? How can you get rid of some of, transfer of some of these responsibilities to somebody else and really get on with bringing your best forward? And that's why seek it out. Go to seminars, be with like-minded people, whatever. But just realize, I don't know, how much have I paid attention to Lunar New Year's? Now and again, you kind of see it, but this year of the horse, front and center.
Yeah.
So,
And it sounds like this project you have going on, you have two speakers a month. Can you talk about this thing that's coming up this year for you?
yep, we've got March is action packed. We've got three.
Oh, wow.
We have on Wednesday this fabulous lady who lives in Scotland, and her business, she's a philanthropic consultant, so she travels the world and works with universities and hospitals to help them bring their best forward with their donors. And so clearly making a difference in the world. The next one is a VP with Manulife, and she just came back from a conference in San Diego. And Manulife, it's a big financial company. They're in the US, um, realizing that they want to twin health and wealth for longevity. Well, this is exactly what I've been on about for the last 30 years. Really, if you're not paying attention to your health first as the cornerstone, doesn't matter how much money you've got. And then the one after that, March the 25th, is this woman who she looks like Dolly Parton's daughter. She's just all done up, just a go-getter. And her business is called I Am Unbreakable. And this event that I was just at on Friday, she had an I Am Summit and had all these amazing guest speakers. So, it just realizes that everybody's unique, everybody's got possibilities, everybody can make a difference. And the key is to have the courage to bring it forward and put it out there and keep going and make a difference.
How much have you seen personal story being a huge um, catalyst, I'll say,
Yeah,
for women to make changes? Personal stories.
yeah, huge. And this is how, when we decided that amplify would be the word for 2026. Okay, well, how are we going to bring all of that forward? Well, the last thing people want is a talking head that just, yaps on. So that's when we decided, okay, we know all these accomplished women. Let them come forward, let them share their story. And one woman that I interact with, she is fabulous. Her name is Rose Odette, and she's written a book called Leading Like a Lioness or Lead Like a Lioness. And when she and I interacted, she said, Nancy, you are defined as a legacy advisor to accomplished women. How would you define an accomplished woman today? Is it the same today as you've always? And that was a showstopper for me because you just kind of keep going, keep going. I thought, no, an accomplished woman today is, when I first started, an accomplished woman would be somebody who got to where they wanted to be, like the VP of whatever, or the CEO of their own company or whatever. They were seeking that achievement. Well, now an accomplished woman to me is somebody who has achieved much, but is continuing on with their passion and their heart to make the world a better place in their own unique way. So it's that continuing on, not somebody who's achieved and aren't I wonderful, somebody who has achieved and they're not giving up anytime soon to make the world a better place. So these three, amazing. They will be amazing. And then in April, again, we've got at least two, maybe three, and each one of them is significantly successful with what they've achieved, but are continuing to reach out really to make the world a better place. And the whole idea underlying all of this is we see what in the world is going on, a lot of which we don't agree with, and who's leading? It's men. So girls, step it up, get stepping right up to the top, like keep going, and we will help you. We will champion you. And let's find a way to have more women leading in this entire world. And fingers crossed that the world is then a better place and more focused on just basic humanity.
Right. So good, Nancy.
Where do you see yourself in the future, Nancy? Where do you see yourself headed?
Well, in Canada, we have a big event, October the 18th in 1929 was when the famous five, so five fabulous women, managed to get women declared as persons. So 1929, October the 18th, Persons Day. And that meant that we could vote. So we've got a big event coming up in 2029, October the 18th, the 100th anniversary. So all along, we're celebrating a lot of women who have made a difference. But my key question is, okay, what about these women that are behind us? What do they not have now that was equal to not being able to vote that we should be championing and making a difference on? And so I will continue on all of that until I can't talk anymore. Because if I can inspire young women to really step up and step out and be a tremendous leader. Actually, this one woman I'm hoping to have as a guest speaker, her mission is to have the new replacement for the UN be a woman. So the key question is, how can we help? How can the rest of us help make that happen rather than just leaving it up to somebody to figure out, oh, guess what? We've got another fabulous man. So that's my mission. That's what I'll keep doing.
That's amazing.
Until I can't do it anymore.
That's awesome.
Right. That's so great. Is there anything else that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say on that note, I am a Rotarian. I was president of our club last year and was given a leadership award for that. But as a result, I've connected. Actually, our guest speaker last week was Mona in Beirut, Lebanon. And so it's interesting this morning because apparently there was some attack on Lebanon. And so these women now have heard her and they're coming to me and saying, well, how is Mona? So I sent Mona a message, how are you doing? And she said, they've got a place in Atlanta as well. And she said, we're trying to get out of here as fast as we can. So Rotary globally is a great way to connect with like-minded people and address that whole scenario of how do we get more women in really, really significant leadership roles to make that difference. And Mona she's amazing. Like her story was incredible in terms of what she's been through and then what she's working on.
Right. Nice. Is there, would you say there's been some, like I'm talking globally here, because I'm guessing you've been asked to come speak and be at conferences and all these things. Is there one that really stands out that you're like, that was amazing? Like,
not probably, well, Rotary is one. An answer to that question, I now have the privilege of creating one for December the 2nd. And I really, really want to make that really significant. And actually, you ladies can help me. I'm trying to find out who the agency is that books Melinda French Gates, because I would love her to be the featured guest speaker because, she and Mackenzie Scott are so fabulous because they've got all this money and they're not just sitting back. They're really, really moving forward, especially Melinda. She's quite active and quite public about what she cares about and what she's doing. Mackenzie Scott is a little bit more casual about, she's giving away a lot of money. Somebody said, wouldn't it be great if the two of them decided to start their own media company. I mean, this is where their wealth came from to begin with. And half the time they were the catalyst that helped their spouses be so successful. So wouldn't that be great if they did start their own media company and hired a lot of the journalists that are being let go? Washington Post is one in particular. So it's interesting. That's the tribe that I want to be part of, to be the catalyst to help younger women get the message that, you've got a lot of unique ability to really make a difference in the world.
How do you
I'm
like to
sorry.
stay connected to people?
Well, these events
Like
certainly
meetings.
are making that happen. But Friday was an in-person event, and I saw all kinds of people there. And again, my guest, I connected her with a few people, and now she's delighted. And so it just keeps on going, like
Yeah,
all
so
those
it's mostly
connections.
word of mouth or like talking to people, not necessarily
Yes, definitely.
socials and
Yes,
emails and stuff.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
You're in the plane and moving, it sounds like.
exactly, exactly.
That's
Get out
awesome.
of my way.
Oh, I love it.
I feel like that's a great place to end, quite honestly.
Yeah,
Like,
it's been really great.
um, get out of my way and let's go, girls. What did you
Right.
say? Step it up, girls. I like that.
Yes.
I like
Step
it.
up and step out. Step up and step
Great.
out. And are you familiar with the tall poppy syndrome?
No.
Oh, you should Google that, because this is why women often don't, because, they'll step up with lots of capability and then they're thinking, oh my goodness, I'm being too bold. Or they
Yeah.
do it and other women go, who the heck does she think she is? Well, guess what, girls? Just you do the same. Um, the Reverend Marianne Budd in Washington, who led the service the day after President Trump had been inaugurated. And she was pleading with him to have mercy on all the immigrants that he was sending away. And so, talk about being brave. And she's written a book called How We Learn to Be Brave. Those are my kind of girls. Like, go for it. You've got the opportunity. Why would you not? And you're right. Step up, step out, stay vertical, keep smiling, make a difference.
Oh,
Love it. I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome, Andi.
This
And
has been
Josi.
thank
this has
you
been
so much.
wonderful.
This is
Yeah.
Yeah.